You know, normally we thank jurors for time away from your life, your jobs, your family, coming to court, listening to a trial. Certainly is a service that's provided by you as citizens, but in this case, God bless you. You people are going to have to listen to some of the most horrific things. Look at some of the most horrific things. And jurors, it's a beautiful system. You pass between, as you heard Don Clerk say, you probably don't remember it, but it's old language, goes back to Old England. It says that you as jurors pass between the government, then. And she places herself on her country, which country you are. You owe allegiance to nothing but your oath, your consideration, and your time. Your common sense. You bring your life experience to this trial. You render a verdict. And as jurors, experiences, take the job very, very, very seriously. You people will never forget this case. And thank you for that service. The government says that this is a situation, it's not a referendum on women's having babies and having postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, but it sure as hell is. Because you're going to hear, consistent with what His Honor told you in the instructions, consistent with the obligation that the government has when they brought this charge. Tim Cruz, the DA, right in the front row, brought this charge. He knew, as did his office, the facts of this case. And he knew, when he brought this charge, that it was going to kill the soul of this young woman. And they would bring their evidence in front of a jury that she knows that she killed these children. We'll sit here, listen to their evidence, but I suggest to you that the issue for consideration is what was going on in that woman's mind. You're going to hear evidence that, as the government said, Lindsay was a kind of a parent pleaser. She was a person that in school had a lot of friends, still has friends. You'll hear evidence to this day from the 6th grade. High school, college, nursing school. You're going to hear evidence that Lindsay, in the course of being in high school, she was a high achiever, gymnastics. Stopped doing gymnastics because she hurt herself and didn't like to do the backflips and stopped doing gymnastics, but she was very athletic. You're going to hear evidence that right after she had the birth, the last child, within 4 or 5 days, she ran a 5K. She was very, very, very physically fit. Her life was such that she watched what she ate, watched what she did in her life as far as activities, and was one heck of a mother. She loved her children. All the things that the DA said to you about those little kids and their life and what they like, she knows 1,000 times more than what they know. And in that capacity, as a mother, daily you'll see evidence that she would decorate rooms, that she and Patrick did have that achievement of a wonderful life. They had it all. They met in Boston. She was a young nurse out of school. He was working in his industry. They ended up falling in love. They got married, bought a nice house. And you know, people will say, oh, they're living in this mansion. No, they're living in a very, very humble house in Duxbury that they had to struggle to pay for. That house, you will see, not from the view, because it's not enough that we have photographs. On top of the photographs, we have to have video. And on top of the photographs and the video, we have to have an auto-computerized animated display. And on top of the photographs, the video, the automated animated display, we have to get on a bus and go take a ride and look at the house where some guy and his wife are now living, that it doesn't look at all like what it looked like when Lindsay and Patrick were living there with their 3 kids. But there are videos that show what that home looked like that day, prior to that. You'll see in every room, there are things hanging on the walls, alphabets, colors, numbers, pictures of different cartoon characters, and I'm too old to even remember what they are. Movies, all sorts of toys, erector sets, trucks, all over the living room. There was no dining room. It was a large thing for the baby to be in, and then surrounded by toys. Every single room had toys in it. These children were loved and nurtured and cared for by her. She didn't want to get rid of her kids because of her selfish life, as the government indicates. She loved those children right up to the time of their death. You're going to see that there's photographs in this case that you will be able to evaluate that show that. Some of them might even be in the videos that the state police took. This case is a massive production by the district attorney's office. You have the district attorneys, the assistant district attorneys, the assistants to the assistant district attorneys. You have the state police crime laboratory. You have the detectives. You have the state police, the armed men that will go out and interview witnesses and will investigate this case. You have the victim witness advocate, very nice lady, by the way, that deals with witnesses and people in a case such as this. It's a massive operation, and that's great. We should have that. But when you're considering the evidence, you consider the fact that you have 2 young people that were living this life, that were working, and Patrick, not because of COVID, not because of he just didn't want to work in an office anymore. He worked out of his basement. He worked in an office in the basement. He was there because of what Lindsay was going through. He was there. He lived it. And he will testify to it. He doesn't have to testify, quite frankly, and identify clothing and be distraught and placed in a position of horror in this courtroom. But he will testify to what they went through as a husband and a wife, the wife being pregnant. They had 3 kids. After the second child, she had postpartum. You're going to hear evidence that that's one of the issues that is important because that can lead to bipolar. One of the things that you don't do, which is taboo, is if you have somebody that's bipolar, you don't put them on an antidepressant, you don't put them on Zoloft, you don't put them on what's called an SSRI. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, it messes with your brain. You don't do that, but it was done in this case. The reason that Lindsay went to the doctors was in September 2022. July and August of 2022, they were very happy, lovely little family. September, things went sideways. And she looked for, and you heard the government saying, and remember what they say in their opening, and remember that when they prepare a case, and remember how they can point at different aspects of the case that show guilt, that show that somebody's conniving. In this case, how many times we heard she faked the suicide. Faked the suicide. Little cuts, dinky little cuts, scratches you'll hear, stated in the opening statement or time of the arraignment. That she asked for a lawyer. That's rich. You're going to hear evidence that she was in her bedroom after the horrific act in the basement. And that she was up in the bedroom, that she stood in front of a full-length mirror, that she took the knife that was in the kitchen, that she had taken, and when she took the knife, she cut her throat in front of the mirror. The This is no fake suicide. This is her when she was brought to the hospital. When she was in the hospital. That's what her appearance was at the South Shore Hospital. When she's at the South Shore Hospital, she had wonderful care and treatment that was able, against her will, to save her life. Fake suicide, little scratches, dinky little scratches. This is a photograph that was taken at the South Shore Hospital of her neck. Photograph taken of her wrist, showing the split in the skin. Photograph showing you'll see evidence of this, the bedroom floor next to the bed with the blood. The knife next to the cup. Sadly, a gift saying, "Because kids." You see the white residue inside the cup? That's where the pills were crushed up with leftover lemonade from the night before when she consumed that. That's the knife. This here you'll see is sleep aids. See this here, deep sleep pillow spray. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't sleep for months. More photographs of the injuries to her neck. And then, in the course of the fake suicide speculation by the police, you'll see the evidence that she hung on the window ledge and, like Spider-Man, I guess, slid down the wall of the house. You're going to hear evidence that she flung and threw herself out the window, striking her head on the ground, full ground, causing what's known as a Jefferson fracture of her neck. She shattered, exploded her thoracic spine, shattered her cervical spine, the first disc, broke every rib. And the Jefferson fracture, you'll hear evidence, is not consistent with a fake suicide by any means. Jefferson fracture is consistent with Superman when he got thrown off the horse. It's consistent with people that have the tragedy where they dive into a swimming pool, as a result of which they get that fracture in their neck and they're paralyzed. She's paralyzed. She's not going to get up miraculously and walk out of this courtroom. She's paralyzed and will be paralyzed for the rest of her life. She's living her own hell. She knows what happened with those kids. And she wanted to die. When she was in the hospital, you're going to see evidence. At Brigham and Women's Hospital, when they transferred her from South Shore Hospital, air flight into Brigham and Women's Hospital, and she was then given the emergency room, the emergency treatment at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. You couldn't move in that room. There was so much equipment, so many wires, so many breathing tubes, so many machines, humming, banging, clicking, and she's spread out like she's crucified on the bed while she's being treated in that room, surrounded by armed police officers. Out in the hallway, guarding the hallway against what? Anyone could guess. Guarding the hallway, guarding the room, guarding the bed, standing there. She's handcuffed to the bed. She goes to the South Shore Hospital. Government speculates that, again, you see how the government is able to create what they want for facts, that she is so cold and calculating that she said that she heard voices after I brought a psychologist, Dr. Zeisel, into that room to see her. I had to move heaven and earth. You'll hear evidence that they wouldn't even let her have visitors. She couldn't even see her family for over a week. The cops wouldn't let anybody near her. That room was an armed camp. I had to move heaven and earth and practically get a court order to be able to get in there and see her while she's laying in the bed. And they suggest, and will suggest, that she said, I heard voices, I heard command hallucinations telling me to kill the kids and then kill myself, after she talked to Paul Zeisel as if he was telling her what to say because I'm the lawyer and I brought him into that hospital. You're going to hear evidence that Paul Zeisel is one of the most respected psychologists. You're going to hear evidence that he was embedded with the military in Afghanistan for years. You're going to hear evidence that he works for the government when there's a shooting involving the FBI, the CIA, or any of those alphabet soup cops. He's involved out interviewing these people for post-traumatic stress. I knew that he was the man to talk to this young woman in the hospital. When I finally was able to get into that room, into that hospital, he was with me. He did not tell her command voices. He, as a human being, gave her a cell phone so she could call Patrick. But you know what? You're going to hear evidence from a woman who works at Brigham and Women's Hospital. I saw Lindsay as soon as she came out of her coma. She is a woman that works with the religious services in that hospital. And the first thing that Lindsay wanted to know is, where's my family? And then she told her about what happened and told her about the command voices. And this is well before she ever met me or Paul Zeisel. So you have to keep focused on the evidence because it's so easy to manipulate. There's no fake suicide. And there was no plan to fake her sickness.